Hello, Temporal here, and today I want to cover Pharamercy Hanzo Dive. This was kind of the old school original counter comp to Goats. It's a double poke or spam comp, and that you're using both Farah and Hanzo to go ahead and wear out the enemy team, look for picks, really hit them when they can't hit you back. It's benefited recently from so many teams blind opening Zen Goats, expecting that mirror Goats matchup, compared to when teams were more conservatively opening with Moira or Anna Goat, so that they could fight off non-Goats comps as well as being okay against goats. The way this comp works is Pharamercy and Hanzo take wide angles from each other. If Zen can find a third safe angle, great. If not, it's okay for him to play from the same angle as Hanzo. High ground is a priority for positioning, as it is your best defense against goats. If high ground isn't available and you're still trying to play this comp, you want to play with very long sight lines so that if they try to push you, you see it in plenty of time. You have plenty of time to rotate away yourself. And as they push your Zen, your Hanzo, those are the two most likely heroes to push. That opens them up from your wide angle play to then be hit in the back by your Pharah, your Hanzo, your Zen, whoever they didn't push towards there, which will usually lead to a pretty easy and pretty clean pickoff. So I'm going to talk about how to play this comp on defense because it's harder than playing it on offense. On offense, you can take pretty much as long as you need to go ahead and get a poke advantage and just win like that. But on defense, it's a little harder. So what I say on defense will apply to the offense by and large. You guys are smart enough to make the adjustments. When you're looking to play this comp on defense, your tanks are interested in lightly contesting the point. Since that Inspire change came through, it's more important than ever to not let yourself actually be hit by Briggs. Even if that means that you only touch the point for an instant and leave, and the primary amount of your contest is coming from that 0.7 seconds of lingering contest that activates whenever anyone touches the point, that's fine. That's better than letting Briggs consistently hit you and keep reactivating that Inspire. As a fresh Inspire, if it doesn't get overwritten, is 100 points of healing for her whole team now. And that's a huge amount of sustain that you don't want them to have as it plays against your win condition. The only way she should be activating her Inspire is when she hits a whip shot. She should not be getting flail hits. Your tanks do want to go ahead and contest on opposite sides of the point. So Winston might pop down, contest on one side of the point that Briggs isn't on. As Briggs starts to run over to it, Winston leaves, and then Diva contests back where Briggs used to be. And then Briggs turns around and goes for her. Now Diva leaves. Winston may have to wait another second or so, and then he touches again once he has jump pack to leave again. You're really just looking to slow down the cap of the point, give your DPS a little extra time to do work, while requiring very little support resources, very little help from your supports yourself, because you want the vast majority of that support to be poured into your DPS, not into your tanks. Go ahead and get health packs if you do take damage. You're not at all worried about charging support ults. You're much more interested in letting your support stay on your DPS and enable them to have higher uptime, more damage, etc. Speaking of resource management, Mercy is primarily going to pocket Pharah pretty darn heavily because that damage boost is really nifty for her. And then Zen's Harmony Orb is going to mostly live on Hanzo. That lets him stay in the poke phase, even if Zen is shooting at him, even if Zarya's lobbing orbs at him, Diva's long range shooting him. That lets him stay in the fight, get better uptime. Zen can, of course, cycle that Harmony Orb lightly to the tanks, to a Winston, to a Diva that's missing some health. But again, those tanks want to be as low resource dependent as possible so that Hanzo can have more uptime with that Harmony Orb there. It's totally okay to give up ticks on your first defense with this comp against goats, as after the first fight, you will very likely have DPS ults, which you're going to rotate for future fights to win the fights much faster. You're going to be much less worried about giving up a tick in future fights if you rotate those properly. With that in mind, you shouldn't need a DPS ult to win the first fight. In the first fight, you're going to be spamming the Goats team heavily on their way in, wearing them out of resources, maybe looking for picks. Then you're going to continue to spam them when they're on point. Your tanks are going to do that alternate we talked about. And you should get enough exhaust on them, or you should get potentially a pick off, that by the time you get your DPS ults up, even if you were playing for exhaust, you should be within a couple seconds, maybe 5, 6 seconds, of completely exhausting them and finding that first tank kill or two anyways. So it's better to go ahead and just commit to finish doing that rather than spending an ult, and then have your DPS ults available to rotate through there for future fights. After your first fight, you're going to look to rotate your primary two ults, Missile Barrage and Dragonstrike. When looking to win defensive fights with Missile Barrage, what you want to do is get out about a second of Matrix before you go ahead and commit to the play. Generally, you can do this with about 6 to 12 seconds of poke. So play that exhaust style for 6 to 12 seconds. Your Hanzo, your Pharaoh shooting, getting value. You should get out about a second of Matrix in that amount of time. And once you've done so, you commit hard for a dive. So what I mean by that is your Winston jumps in, your D.Va goes in, and your Pharaoh ease in. She ease in just like a normal diver. She concussion blasts herself in, and then as soon as she's in, she's going to missile barrage. Your Winston's going to drop his bubble, your D.Va is going to hard matrix your Pharaoh, even though she's in the fight in the middle of it, she's going to turn in hard matrix your Pharaoh, and this all needs to be like a coordinated dive. They should all land within about 3/4 of a second of each other. All those abilities should go down. You can move your Harmony Orb over to your Pharaoh, great. And then you've got that big barrage damage coming in. You've got Defense Matrix protecting your Pharaoh from most damage. And you've got your Winston Bubble Down as that extra layer protecting her from Zarya's damage, since, of course, Defense Matrix won't do that. This is going to get you 2 to 3 kills if you do it right. That's generally going to win you the fight. Even though it's a tough fight, it still goes. This is generally going to win you the fight, as you'll get 2 to 3 kills and some nice damage on other things. Even if you lose your Pharaoh, not the biggest deal at that point. You should be able to clean up pretty nicely. When I see this play not work for teams, usually it's due to one of a few different reasons. Either the team isn't getting out that second of Matrix first. Maybe the Pharaoh is trying to hide above a choke for like a sneaky barrage play. Don't expect that to work in organized play. That's kind of like hitting a flank shatter. You might get away with it once or twice over the course of a match, but you shouldn't expect to get away with it multiple times per match. So I don't strongly recommend that. Instead, get out that second of Matrix first. And to get out that second of Matrix, your Pharaoh is going to be obvious about where she is because she's one of the people getting it out by throwing in rockets. The other reason it doesn't work is if the dive isn't a good coordinated dive and the tanks don't arrive at roughly the same time as that Pharaoh in that tight window of about 3/4 of a second, then Pharaoh just goes ahead and gets blown up, and that doesn't work very well. Or the tanks get blown up before Pharaoh arrives, and then you can't win the ensuing fight, etc. So make sure you're hitting it like it's a normal dive with your 3 divers going in there, Hanzo supporting it from afar with poke damage. That's what you want it to look like. If it looks like that, it's got a really high chance of being successful. And finally, the last thing that teams sometimes run into to make the play not work is that Pharaohs sometimes just barrage from too high up. The height that your Pharaoh wants to barrage from is just above where Reinhardt can hit with hammer swings. If you're just above where Reinhardt can hit you with hammer swings, you are not going to take damage from him, which is very important so that there's much less damage that can be done to you, since Matrix is your primary protection during the barrage play. And you're going to be low enough that you're going to get much better damage, much more burst damage than if you'd been a bit higher up. And that means that you have the ability to kill tanks through Transcendence, kill through a Rein shield and then kill Rein and D.Va, get through that second of Matrix that D.Va has and then kill her and her friends. Like, it's really important that you're as close to the ground as you can be without getting hit by Rein swings so that you get that better burst damage. Speaking of which, when it comes to using that burst damage with Pharaoh, I do recommend looking to burn through tanks, as you do have the damage to do so with Barrage rather than supports, because there's the potential of Lucio slipping away since you are still using projectiles and he can be very slippery, and there's the potential of you starting a barrage on Zen, him taking little damage and then saving himself with Transcendence, and then you've wasted some portion of your barrage. Whereas if you'd been on Rein, D.Va, Zarya, those types of heroes the whole time, even if they have their shield, even if they have a second of Matrix, even if they get Transcendence, you can go ahead and force that kill onto them and they're not going to be able to get away. So that takes care of one way that you win fights. The other way that you win fights after you've got your ult rotation going is Dragonstrike fights. To win with Dragonstrike, you need to hit the Dragonstrike as the Goats team is passing through a choke. If it's done properly, it's going to both cause the Goats team to split, as you perhaps make their supports go, oh no, we want to back up, while their tanks go, oh no, we have to go forward, because you got that nice little split there. And it's also going to get some damage onto some of them. Frequently, someone will need to call the timing of this Dragonstrike, as Hanzo will be playing at an angle or from a spot that he can't immediately see the team that is passing through the choke there. So don't be afraid to have a spotter call the ult for him. It takes a little bit of practice. As this ult is coming in, as it's splitting, as it's doing a little bit of damage, same thing, you need that dive to come in. So both of your dive tanks and Pharah are going to dive in, and they're going to take advantage of either the split that happened, or if the split didn't happen, hopefully you got pretty nice damage out of your dragon as they tried to force their way through it, and you're able to clean that up quickly. I frequently do recommend combining self-destruct with Dragonstrike if it's available, as you're certainly not going to be using self-destruct during your barrage plays, as using your self-destruct to make their bad choice of how to handle the dragon worse by throwing the self-destruct to one side of it, to a place that they might like to retreat to, for example, can make the play even stronger. Winning a fight with either of these ults, so either Missile Barrage or Dragonstrike, but in particular winning a fight with Dragonstrike, should put you very close to your other DPS ult. And that means you should have that available to go ahead and use, or to be able to farm up quickly as the Goats team is reapproaching the choke, reapproaching the point, so that you have that to use in the next fight. Again, you're looking to rotate these ults. If a Dragonstrike isn't enough, or you don't think it's going to be enough, support it with a self-destruct. If a Missile Barrage isn't going to be enough, great. Let's support it with a Valkyrie dive on top of the Missile Barrage. You want to go ahead and use your other ults to fill in to make your ult plays strong enough so that you can keep rotating. You do not want to use Dragonstrike and Missile Barrage in the same fight, as it will completely decimate your ability to make another hold without first going through an exhaust cycle or getting a bit of a lucky pickoff. To play this comp against floats, you want to go ahead and abuse their lower shield time by spamming them hard. But the instant Winston jumps on someone, usually that's going to be your Zen or your Hanzo, you peel hard. Your D.Va should boop him away immediately, as that'll work even through the Zarya bubble to knock him away, even though it won't do damage. And you're going to focus him hard with your poke. So your rockets are going to start hitting him, your arrows are going to start hitting him. You're going to have that damage to make him back off immediately, even though he's pocketed, to help keep your teammate that was being pressured alive so that he backs out. Once he's backed out, you've got free reign. His team has no shield available. You still have very good poke. You're generally going to be able to find a significant advantage, maybe even a pickoff, before he gets his bubble back and can make another play. So this comp cannot expect to consistently win fights with no DPS ults quickly. So it's not viable to swap onto it if Goats is already steamrolling you, snowballing you, unless you're willing to give up more distance or something like that. This comp is also a double poke comp, which means it is a bit vulnerable to well-executed dives, as well as to clean poke dive comps. But the matchup isn't awful against either of those, and a single swap does put it in poke dive. So it's not the most terrible thing to open blind with. Anyway, that's what I've got for you guys today. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks, guys. Temporal out.